ThinkPad W520. We're here with Kevin Beck, product ambassador, and I should say expert. Kevin, thanks for being with us.
Yep.
We've also got Eric from the social media team, who happens to be a W Series user, so he's going to be chiming in from time to time. Thanks, Eric.
Sure.
Kevin, begin by telling us what's the most basic thing we need to know about the W520.
Okay. As I start slitting the tape here on the box, I think the most basic thing to know is that our W Series is what we market as our mobile workstation class, W for workstation. This is cosmetically very similar to a T520, but I'm going to talk through the under the hood differences that make it a true workstation class machine.
Okay. For non-technical people, they'll also want to know that the W Series is known here as the Beast.
Right, as opposed to the Beauty.
Right, that's right. Beauty.
It's a good looking machine. But so let's go ahead and start by pulling this out. And I think that's just about everything except the power supply. So let me get that out and set that down here. One of the biggest differences for those who are not familiar with the designation of a workstation class machine, really it comes down mostly to video, the color gamut or the ability of the screen to display a larger variety, a wider variety of colors. And then there are a few other differences that we have in this that I'll talk through, like more DIMM slots. This one has 4. So right now at launch it's capable of supporting 4 gig DIMMs for up to 16 gigs. We will be qualifying 8 gig DIMMs, so the machine will be qualified for 32 gigs of RAM.
Okay.
As we've got the packaging and the ship group here, I want to point out that one of the things that we've had to move to with this latest generation of W510, because it can support up to an Intel Core i7 quad-core extreme processor. That, combined with the video and the fact that it can support rated hard drives by taking the optical out and putting a second hard drive in an adapter, has a lot more power requirements. So this is a new 170 watt power adapter.
Okay.
It is not, unfortunately, reverse compatible with any other ThinkPad.
Okay.
The sort of exception to that general rule being that the new docking station, which supports the W520, which uses the 170 watt power adapter with this new keyed barrel here.
Okay.
That docking station, if you buy the one that's specific to the W520, it can support the other ThinkPads that will dock, the L series, the new X series, and the last couple generations of T series.
And as another upside to the brick here, I understand it can also actually run electricity to an entire town. Is that true?
Apparently so.
Okay.
Apparently
Good to know.
So,
Good to know.
as with all of our other ThinkPads, as much as is possible, recycled and recyclable packaging on the end caps here. So, and this would be our ship group with our manuals and things in there. So I'll just take that away. So let's do like a quick walk around the outside of the system here. Get some focus. Got our Kensington lock, our Ethernet, our optical, our 4-in-1 media card reader, our our express card slot there. On the front, very clean, nothing but the latch to open it. Then on the side here, we've got our first of our 2 cooling vents, cooling ports. Display port, VGA, 2 USB 3.0, a USB eSATA combo, an optional smart card reader for security, a 1394 FireWire, and the wireless off and on switch.
Okay.
Then around back, we've got our second of 2 cooling exhaust ports, our power plug, our powered USB. You'll notice that's yellow, meaning that you can leave an external device, phones, MP3 players, that sort of thing. Many, but not all, depending on their power draw plugged in. And then also, believe it or not, still a modem in this class of
Kevin,
machine.
real quick, if you could show us the USB 3.0 again. I know I've heard a lot on the Lenovo Facebook page from people who've been clamoring for that. What's the main benefit of the 3.0 versus the 2.0?
Simply speed.
Okay.
It's completely reverse compatible with USB 2.0 and 1.0 for that matter. But you've got a quantum leap in speed. I can't remember the exact figure, but
yeah, I've got it. I just pulled it up on our website here. It's 10 times faster data transfer at 50% more power for connected devices. So that's a biggie. Okay, yeah, not to sidetrack you.
Okay, so I'll turn this over here and show the bottom. This is the 9-cell of the 2 batteries that are available for the system. This is the 9-cell, which sticks out the back a little bit here. There's also a 6-cell battery, which would fit flush. The 6-cell battery is going to get you about 6.5 hours of battery life. The 9-cell is going to get you about almost 11, about 10.8 hours of battery life.
Okay.
And that's 9-cell. There is also an additional 9-cell slice battery that clicks onto the bottom while this is in place, and the two can be used together. That'll get you up to 21.6 actually hours of battery life.
That's amazing. Let's bring Eric into it here. Again, Eric has been using a previously a W701, the dual screen model. And he might jump in here to talk to us about how far that's come from the previous battery life.
Very, very significant. Love the power that the 700 and the 510 have, but with that sort of battery power, that's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Actually useful for carrying around.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So yeah, walk us through some of the performance aspects. Actually, Eric, you had mentioned there were 3 things that you wanted to cover today. What were the 3 areas that you wanted to kind of frame the discussion around?
For me personally, I look at a laptop like this. There's 3 things I want to try to figure out. That first being performance. Is it going to be able to run the things I need to run it? Is it going to be able to have that power and that juice behind it? Next is weight. I do a lot of travel these days, and one of the things that kind of warned me after a while. 700 is a bit of a hefty thing to get through some of those security checkpoints from time to time. So something light. Is pretty key.
Yeah, W701 with the dual screen clocked in right at about 11 pounds.
Yeah.
Minus the power adapter, the weight of which I do not actually know off the top of my head. With a 6-cell, this one's starting at 5.4 pounds, and even with a 9-cell is only up to about 5.75 pounds. So much more.
That's less than a 510 as far as I know, right?
Yes, a much more portable system. So from a performance perspective, we're looking at up to the current highest levels of Core i7 quad-core extremes. I've got 2 video card offerings, an NVIDIA Quadro 1000M, which I believe is a 1 gig of video RAM model. Then the big daddy, the Quadro 2000M with 2 gigs of video RAM. And we are already beginning to see some reviews where people with various configurations are seeing things like Windows performance scores of minimum 6.9 across the board. Mid to high 7s on some of the things, depending on whether there are SSDs installed. The screen, the high-end screen of the 3 that are available is a full HD 1920 by 1080 screen with 95% of the Adobe RGB color gamut. Right, so for any sort of color specific CAD or design work, but most particularly any sort of video or photo work, you're going to get a really good coverage of the color gamut there. So that's the ability of it to display from one end of the gamut to the other. The accuracy of the color for any given color is driven by this X-Rite, Huey X-Rite color calibrator here. That's something that will take this screen and calibrate the displayed colors to known good values of given colors. You just simply kick that off in software, close the screen. It takes about a minute and a half to completely calibrate the screen. And it'll even remind you to do that, every day, week, 2 weeks, however long you want to set the interval there. So really well thought out in terms of being something that's very useful to both the CAD segment. We have ISV certifications for CATIA, Autodesk, AutoCAD, some of the Adobe applications, as well as a whole host of others. But then also video professionals, photography professionals, etc. It's just very well thought out. So I'm going to go ahead and fire it up here.
And Kevin, just to pull back a minute on the performance sort of messages for the W520, again, there was one blog that we had seen from TechNet. It was, I believe, Keith Combs had written a blog about the W520. And he said in some cases it was able to do, he said it was twice as fast as his W510 at certain chores, which I found, if he had been comparing it to maybe a system that was about 3 or 4 years old, maybe that would have made sense. But
right, just generation over generation. I've seen that in his review and in others. Just some simple rendering tasks up to half the time, or down to, I suppose you should say, half the time of even our previous generation. So there's definitely a whole lot more horsepower packed into this machine.
And this is also one of our enhanced experience 2.0 machines, is that right?
Right. So
promising faster boot up times, right?
Right. That's got all of the enhancements and the methodology that we put into designing the preload and tuning the load order of both our drivers, Windows services, BIOS optimizations to make sure that once this thing is finally set up and running, that it's going to boot as fast as is possible.
Sure.
So I'm going to go ahead and run through the out-of-box experience here and just do a basic setup on this machine. I'll set it up as user Lenovo.
And while you're doing that, Eric, you mentioned two of the three things. You'd said performance and weight. What was the third one?
Oh, battery life.
Battery life.
We covered that there's
So,
very significant enhancements in the battery life versus some of the previous models,
Great.
which I'm grateful for.
I'd also seen on our website actually some of the claims that we're making, Kevin, from a green standpoint, for a machine that we call the Beast, and that's obviously performance oriented. It seems like that we had a lot to say about the sort of environmental side of things here.
Right. You know, a lot of that's in the way that we manufacture it. It's also in the packaging, and it's also in the modifications, or rather, I should say, the presets that we put into our Lenovo Power Manager. While there are certainly times where you need to run this thing full out with every bit of horsepower that it can possibly have, other times you may not need to. So we make accommodations for that and have power saving modes that can be entered into either manually or automatically when the machine is, for example, AC power is removed, just to make sure that that you're doing the right thing and using, for example, Energy Star approved configurations. In fact, the tool will tell you when you get the slider balanced to the right thing, you'll get a little green leaf that pops up and say that you're under the Energy Star approved power consumption limits.
Is there a switchable graphics aspect to that as well?
Yes, this machine is fully enabled for NVIDIA Optimus graphics, which means that you essentially have two graphics processors working together. The NVIDIA Quadro K1000 as well as the onboard Intel, I think in this generation it's HD 3000. So it can be set to use one all the time, use the other all the time, to intelligently make choices between the two. For example, running discrete when you're on AC power and running integrated when you're on battery power, or any combination of the two. But because we've got the two video chips working together, this machine will support 3 total monitors, even without the dock. Right, so we've got both VGA and DisplayPort out off of this machine, and then the dock has 2 DisplayPorts and 2 DVIs. So any combination of all of those ports that are available, the resolutions will differ depending on whether you're using analog out or digital out, VGA versus DVI or DisplayPort. But you can certainly run your internal 1920 by 1080 screen, and then plug 2 external DVI or DisplayPort monitors into it and run those at their full maximum supported resolution. Good.
And to tie out the thoughts about our sort of green features, it is EPEAT Silver qualified, Energy Star rated, mercury-free displays. We've got smart grid technology, which offers some power savings. And just, generally speaking, compared to the W510 and the ones that came before, lower power usage. So
right, and it still has all of the signature ThinkPad design aspects, incredibly durable hinges, tested to 30,000 open and close cycles. This is a hybrid carbon fiber, glass fiber reinforced top, and a glass fiber reinforced plastic bottom. So you've still got the signature ThinkPad texture as well as the durability in the casing.
Sure. Let's not have you throw this thing or stomp on it. We have in the past we've launched them. We've launched ThinkPads from a trebuchet, right? The giant catapult.
Yes, we have.
I believe a dump truck ran over one at one point, but let's not do that today, Kevin. Okay?
Absolutely not. Just to point out, last sort of thing here. There's just a simple latch here on the bottom for the optical drive. And so this is the DVD multi-burner player, but I don't have one with me. But this can be pulled out, and you can put an adapter in here with a second hard drive. So in our shipping configuration, you can get up to 1 gig of rated hard drive space, either as RAID 1 or RAID 0.
Gotcha. All right. I feel like we've covered a lot of bases. Have we missed anything here, Eric? Anything that you wanted to learn about today or see with the new model?
I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious about the SSD options and stuff like that.
Right.
What have we tested out on this thing?
We're shipping this in configurations currently with up to 500 gig, 7200 RPM drives, but we do also have the new Intel 160 gig SATA drive available for it as well. Then there's also a shipping configuration where you can configure If you choose not to populate the wireless WAN slot, so you don't have a cellular data modem, you can populate that slot with an Intel mSATA, an 80 gig mSATA card that can become a small boot drive. And then you can configure your RAID potentially as either 1 or 2 or however many you want, really, other drives. So you can have a purely SATA-based, mSATA-based 80 gig boot drive, and then RAID it. Now, I will have to say I'm not sure if we can ship it that way from the factory, but the technological option exists to configure it that way if you so choose.
That's going to be great for the tethering community.
Nice. Guys, well, thanks so much. And I should point out that as of today, prices fluctuate, obviously, but as of today on the U.S. website, the W520 starts at $12.99, which is marked down significantly from its list. $22.15 is the list price on there. But it's on sale now, and go and get them. Guys, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.